We absolutely love Pakistan.
Play the theme music. Hello and welcome to this episode of Tripology. I'm Alan and I'm here with the ever impartial Adam.
Firmly positioned myself on the fence.
Yeah, you're agnostic, you're ambivalent, you're on the fence, and I'll need that impartiality today because we have now left Pakistan, and I think in the rounding off process, as we discuss what we loved about Pakistan, a bit of impartiality will be a good thing because I've propelled myself to one side of the fence very distinctly. I absolutely adored Pakistan.
You don't think it's recency bias?
There's some recency bias involved, but also I think it's really cemented itself as one of my favourite countries of all time.
Of all time. I'd have to say the same, but you've been to many more countries than I have. So I think that's more impressive that you've said that. Because how many countries have you been to now?
I think it's more than 64.
And it's featuring where? Top?
I think it's maybe in the top 5, maybe.
My goodness, that's incredibly high.
I can't reveal what the other ones in the top 5 are because I don't know. But Pakistan, as close as it is to the present of my life, I think that I just adored it, man. And so much of that, and we'll talk about this in detail, is the people themselves.
Yeah, it was an absolutely incredible experience. And I wanted to shed a tear when I left.
Did you actually weep? Were you in tears?
I think knowing that it's still there, knowing that there's still stuff to do there, we didn't complete Pakistan, as it were. I know you love it when people say that.
When people go, oh, I did this country. Yeah, I was in South Asia, I did India, I did Pakistan. What did the process of doing it look like? Because frankly, there's probably a lot of the country as yet unknown to you.
Yeah, I like that as much as the personification of places. Like Amsterdam, you've been wonderful.
Oh, yeah, exactly. On a mug.
Shit. Yeah, so annoying.
Yeah, so we should catch the listener up.
Mm-hmm. Where are we?
We're currently in Oman.
We are on the beach.
And in order to record episodes here in our little wagon, we drive out to a secluded area. We sit here. This is also where we're sleeping.
Yeah, not on the beach, but in the car, in the studio, this new fandangled sort of zebra leopard print. I mean, it's fantastic, isn't it?
It's pretty damn sexy.
The shag pad.
I'm looking forward to the listener hearing all the stories of Oman. We're currently living them, so that's why they're not on the podcast.
Correct.
We have to live things before we talk to you about them. But over on Patreon, you can go there right now, patreon.com/tripologypodcast. We're posting sort of on the road, audio only, little diaries as we're going. They're sort of funny chats.
Yeah, no, it was really good recording yesterday. We tried to record this episode yesterday on a different beach surrounded by camels, and we were rudely interrupted by a local, and then we had to turn that episode into a Patreon content. So if you are interested in that, because it went on for a little bit longer than we expected.
Long time, yeah.
It was a great chat.
Some of the fans are saying it's too long, but they enjoyed it anyway. So if you want to experience that, go over to Patreon. But it does attract a lot of attention, driving in a sort of surreptitious vehicle with blacked out windows to the beach and recording with a load of microphones. So you'll catch up on all those adventures soon. Off the docket for this episode, a couple of things I want to do. I want to catch the listener up on the end of our Pakistani adventure.
Yeah.
And then I want to do a recap of Pakistan on the whole.
Love it.
So where we left the listener, we just got off of Double A's flower truck.
Flower truck, yeah, like some psychedelic, not flowers in that way. I mean, it was flower as in the ground wheat or whatever.
It was it was the perfect meeting of flower the grain and flower the hippie concept, flower power, because we were hitchhiking.
Yeah.
And that's what I really loved about our time hitchhiking with Double A. It was flower centric.
It was an amazing time. And then we ended up in Islamabad. We took a cheeky little bus down to Lahore. And I've got a lot of good things to say about Lahore.
Do you?
Yeah.
Say some of them now.
I think it is one of the best food cities in Asia.
That is a huge claim.
It is a huge claim, actually.
Yeah, that's I mean, one of the biggest things you can say about something.
It's massive.
Yeah.
But I really liked the energy there. I thought it was chaotic, but still with this degree of calmness and tranquility.
Very much so. I want to tackle the fact that you said it's one of the greatest food cities, first of all.
Okay.
Because you lived that edict with such aplomb, I can't help but noticing you vomited.
Yeah, I ate myself into... It wasn't quite food poisoning, was it?
I don't think it was food poisoning. I think it was overconsumption
of desi ghee, clarified butter.
Do you regret eating that much?
Yeah, because it then meant that I couldn't eat even more. So I think sometimes, especially when you're traveling, you eat a meal and you know, in yourself, you know that you're going to be sick as a result of eating it. And that's kind of what I had with this one. It was a beef nahari, do you remember? And I ate far more of it than you did.
Just a little thimbleful I had.
And I was far more sick than you were.
I think you doing that in Lahore, knowing, as you said, that it was one of the renowned food cities, is, you've mentioned Amsterdam. It's the equivalent of someone going to Amsterdam, knowing that it's sort of known for weed and just smoking themselves into oblivion. You knew it was good for food, so you just ate until you almost died.
Yeah, when in Rome.
Yeah.
I do that quite a lot. I did it in Japan. I had 6 meals in one day, 2 of those being ramen.
Yeah.
Another one was tempura. And due to the sodium, I almost had a heart attack.
Yeah, well, we want to talk about food a lot more in this episode when we do have a little Pakistani roundup.
Yeah,
I want to talk as well about the fact that on our first day in Lahore, you said, "Alan, I've got some ideas of places I want to go and eat.
Yeah,
let's venture out." It became a sort of live action role play of the flood in Genesis.
Because there was a lot of rain in the morning.
Yeah, brief but substantial.
Yeah, I wouldn't have said it was enough rain to cause the absolute chaos that ensued in the roads.
Yeah, it was almost as if they were so ill prepared for the rain that the drains didn't work at all. I mean, I can't stress enough, there was a lot of rain. It was maybe an hour.
It was heavy as well.
Of the most torrential downpour you've ever seen.
They were big droplets.
But the resultant carnage was that the roads were completely flooded. People were wading up to their knees.
The deepest we were in was up to our knees walking through the city. And the trash comes out of the drains. If you've got cuts on your feet, I mean, it's not looking good, is it?
I've met some other travel people who have said to me, "Oh, you went to Pakistan. I've heard that it can be quite dirty." And I vehemently disagree with that. I think Pakistan in general I found to be a very, very clean, very, very beautiful place.
Yeah.
If Pakistan... kind of, if it could ever be said to be dirty, that time where it was flooded exemplified that, because the trash came up through the drains. I was okay wading through the water until I saw an upturned syringe on the floor. Ooh. That gives me horrendous anxiety.
The heebie-jeebies.
I got the heebie-jeebies. Yeah. I was jeebing hard. I was trying to see if you could heave a little bit, but you were ploughing on forward.
Yeah, the thought of seeing anything like a syringe or a condom, or it's just really pretty
anything
gross,
medical, sexual, anything like that. But we ploughed on, wading through that water until we found some food options. I think, in the end, worth it. I saw people swimming to work.
One of which was a donkey.
Yeah.
We saw a donkey, didn't we, up to its knees,
having
bless
a
it.
swim, yeah.
Ploughing on. But it was a crazy entry into Lahore. We didn't know what to expect. I do remember at one point you turned to me and you were like, "Adam, I don't know if this is that fun."
I did say that, yeah.
And it wasn't. I mean, how much do you want to eat from a specific restaurant if it's going to...
At the time, I felt very much like any enjoyment of anything in Lahore was going to be tainted by the fact that I'd had to wade up to my nipples to get it.
The novelty of the flood wore off pretty quick. I mean, it was incredibly impressive to witness. And then after about 5 minutes, you think, I'd really like all the water to leave now so I can just walk down the sidewalk.
Yeah, but we did recover. We got some good food. It was okay in the end. We visited some religious sites. We explored the local markets. And then we did something that I've heard of from a long way back. From my times reading Lonely Planets and Nat Geos sat at my grandma's house.
That long ago?
I remember hearing about this specific tradition that went on and thinking, oh, what a load of crazy stuff. And it was poignant for me, this specific thing, because I've spent so long in India on this trip, spent a little time in Pakistan being with you. What did we do?
We went all the way to the Wagah border, which is the border between Pakistan and India. There's a ceremony there that I do think people should witness.
Yeah.
But it's quite strange. It's like a bit of a face-off between the two armies.
Yeah, I think it started off as a militaristic display of dominance.
Right.
And it's sort of now evolved or devolved, depending on how you look at it, into a sort of choreographed dance between the two nations at the border.
And they definitely choreograph it between themselves because they almost mimic each other's dance moves.
I
Right?
saw at one point
Yeah.
the Pakistani gentleman and the Indian gentleman meet at the border, and they had a little high five. Now,
Oh, I've called them dance moves.
yeah, so we need to explain exactly what it is. Basically, the border crossing, and every day there's a procession where a bunch of Pakistani armed guards, the tallest Pakistanis you've ever seen, each and every one of them.
They were gigantic. They were so tall, almost like it's a prerequisite to be. If you want to be involved in the ceremony, in the team that sort of performs that, if you will, you got to be at least 6'5".
Yeah, and some equally tall, ginormous Indian guards.
Mm-hmm.
They meet and they do sort of competitively high leg kicking, marching towards each other.
Yeah,
whilst music's playing, and they're each singing national songs and like proclamations of national pride.
There's kind of an MC, isn't there, on the mic, geeing the crowd up.
Well, that's it. So there's a crowd on both sides as well.
Yeah, it's a spectacle.
Yeah, and they're cheering and going, and popcorn's being sold to the crowds.
An overpriced coconut. Did you notice, here's a question for you, did you notice that the seating area where we were on the Pakistan side was significantly smaller than the stadium that was on the Indian side?
I noticed it, and it was nice that I was on the side of the underdog.
Okay.
You know, because I felt like we were being a bit bullied by the noise of the Indian crowd.
It's a strange thing, isn't it? Because our stadium, if you can call it that, I mean, it was just a few benches really, was absolutely rammed to the rafters. It was full.
With people wearing Pakistani flag face paint, waving Pakistani flags.
So it was, I would say, at full capacity. However, on the other side, on the Indian side, the stadium was far bigger, but it wasn't even half full.
But do you think there were as many people?
There might have even been more people.
Right.
So it's interesting psychologically.
So is it good to have a huge audience that's half full or a small audience that is full? Is it better to be Joe Rogan on his podcast with millions of subscribers, or is it better to be Tripology with a smaller number of very committed tripologists? We don't know, guys.
More work than two people can handle.
But I know between us, we might be able to kick our legs higher than Joe Rogan. And isn't that what really counts?
I think you might be onto something there.
Yeah.
It was surreal for me because it didn't feel like there was any animosity. It was kind of like a celebration of brotherhood.
Yeah, and I think that's what it's become over time.
Okay, cool.
I think it used to be maybe more of an aggressive, like, if we kick our legs higher, you better watch out. Because what follows leg kicking is something more aggressive than leg kicking in the future. But they realized over the years that they could both lift their legs to pretty much the maximum height that a human being can. So unless we're going to get double jointed guards.
Yeah. I mean, what was strange for me as well is coming from the UK, that just wouldn't fly, would it? It was even between the two crowds.
Yeah.
It was quite amicable. It was sort of friendly and jovial. People were screaming and shouting and jeering. There was no like horrible booing, like it was an awful pantomime. There was no swearing. Not that I can speak Urdu, but it seemed quite a friendly, upbeat atmosphere as opposed to what would likely happen in Europe at a football match.
Even when the guards high-fived, had a little shake in the middle, the crowd cheered.
Yeah, they did.
Which was nice to see.
It was really nice to see.
How do you think that sort of thing would go down? In the UK, perhaps? Maybe if there was a little procession between the North and the South. We sort of met in Birmingham.
Yeah.
Maybe. Do you think, who would be able to lift their leg higher, do you think? The Northerners or the Southerners?
I think the Southerners would lift their legs higher.
Yeah.
I think that's
you would
probably...
think that, wouldn't you?
Yeah. I think that on average, people in the South are slightly taller.
Really? Do you think so?
Yeah, so it's just about physicality.
As we get closer to the Netherlands, we sort of grow slightly taller in height.
No, but it wouldn't even involve any leg kicking to see how high you could get it because it'd already be a punch-up.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Instigated by?
You think the South?
No, I think the Northerners would probably resort to violence quicker.
Oh, just see if you can get your leg this up bottle across the head.
Yeah, well, that's just all fun, man. So the Wagah border, recommend it as a little thing to go and do?
It's a bit contrived, but I do think if you're in the area, if you're in Lahore, it is free. It's a good way to spend a couple of hours. You should probably go there.
There you go. You should probably go there. Hugely impartial words indeed. And we're going to talk about just the rest of Pakistan. We're going to really hammer home how amazing we think it is, give some highlights, talk a little bit more about the culture and the food after a brief meditation break. Adam, we're always telling people you've got to go travelling, but sometimes it's hard to know where to start.
That's why we've partnered with Journey.
Yeah, they've found an innovative way to take all the stress and anxiety out of planning an adventure.
All you have to do is fill in a brief questionnaire, letting them know your travel preferences.
Mountains or beaches, good food, hot weather.
Give them that information and a member of their team will get back to you with a trip proposal.
That's going to give you some hints about your potential adventure.
But the final destination remains a complete surprise until you arrive at the airport.
So you've got all the spontaneity of a classic Tripology adventure, but none of the stress. Your whole itinerary sorted out for you.
So go and fill out the Journey questionnaire. We love what they're doing. Support them, support us. There's a link in the description.
Go and click on it. Like a South Asian leg being lifted above waist height, allow your conscious mind to return into your brain as we embark on what can only be described as a Pakistani roundup. Adam, Pakistan.
A Pakistani roundup sounds like a sort of kick that you might do in martial arts.
Yeah. The fight was going well until he did a Pakistani roundup and I woke up 3 weeks later.
Yeah, Pakistan. What a country. I love it. I can't wait to go back.
I can't wait for you to go back. I'm going to continue with my travels.
Right.
And I think that you enjoy going a bit more in depth. For me, I enjoy the fact I've been there once. It's been ticked off the list.
You've done it.
And it's going to be a long time before I go back. No, I think that's just we travel differently. I think you like sort of traveling back and seeing things and delving a little bit deeper. I loved it enough. If I was going to go back to a country ever, maybe that's one I'd go back to.
Yeah, I really did like it, and there's a lot there to explore. I think that people should do a very similar trip to the one we did, actually, a nice loop.
Yeah, let's briefly go over what we did. We started in Islamabad.
Yeah.
We whipped around to Peshawar, up
west
to Chitral, hung around in the Hunza Valley, Kailash Valley, explored the north.
Yeah, it was beautiful.
And
lots
then
of hiking.
Whipped back down to Islamabad to go Lahore and exited via Lahore. Perfect trip in my mind.
Yeah, and you know, the scenery there is astounding. Exceptional mountain ranges, very, very beautiful. Obviously fantastic food in lots of the places you go. Some places are more lush than others, around the north as well. But for me, like you said earlier, it is the people that set it apart.
Yeah, and we've mentioned, as we've covered our Pakistan trip on this podcast, we have mentioned time and time again the kindness offered to us by the Pakistani people.
Yeah.
But I think it's worth a mention again. I've never been treated with such generosity and kindness so consistently as I have in Pakistan. And unless that's just a function of the fact that I'm traveling with you.
No, everyone says that Pakistani people are really kind.
Exactly. That's what I think. It must be a function of Pakistan because so often we go to a place, come on, you're our guest, we'll pay for your dinner, we'll pay for your chai, come on, we'll take you here, we'll sort this out for you. People just wanted us deeply in their hearts to have a good time. I felt that very, very truly.
Yeah, I hope that everyone else feels that as well, especially if you're going to Pakistan after hearing this on our recommendation. I sensed on a few occasions, if I'm honest, that the people we were talking to, the locals, were aware that the way the media paints Pakistan is sort of in bad light. It's not good, is it? There are lots of negative media, negative coverage about what goes on in Pakistan, Pakistani people, etc., etc. So I don't know whether all of it is completely sincere. I'm just trying to be as impartial as I possibly can.
Well, let's just say time and time again, Pakistani people will come up to us and say, look, we're not terrorists.
Yeah, that's quite confronting, isn't
That's
it?
what we're known for in the media, and that's not the case.
Yeah.
Pakistan has developed a reputation based on some specific events, for example, the harbouring of Osama bin Laden post 9/11.
Yeah.
But that isn't what the people here are about, and that's not part of our culture. That's just a thing that happened here.
I know, what an awful thing to know that people might think that you might be a terrorist or something. We're not here to do any harm.
It's awful to be labelled and propagandized in any specific way. But the way, I mean, if there was a way to break that cycle, it's to have kindness in your heart and treat people just beautifully. And now my perception of Pakistan, although it wasn't particularly negative before, I certainly had maybe an idea that it wasn't the safest place or that it was going to be more of a challenging place to travel.
Yeah.
But that perception is entirely broken. It was one of the easiest places I've ever travelled and one of the places I felt the safest.
It's probably what I would say about my reaction to someone saying that is that it would be so passionate if someone said, oh, Pakistan, isn't that really unsafe? You couldn't be more wrong.
Yeah.
Really, from our experience, you could not be more wrong. Pakistan is completely safe. The people are wonderful. You are going to have an incredible time, and it might even creep into your top 5.
Yeah, and if it does creep into your top 5, I mean, you're in for a hell of a time. It's just a beautiful, beautiful place.
Yeah. Any reason why you would want to travel realistically, especially if you're listening to this podcast? I imagine that you place the importance on the same things we do. Pakistan it delivers everything.
Yeah, I want to address one more thing as well, is that often we hear, look, you guys have had a great time in Pakistan. The people have been amazing, but you are dudes.
You're men.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're straight white males.
And your life is really easy in comparison to everyone else.
Yeah, and I would have really loved to get a female perspective on the podcast, but unfortunately, I couldn't find it anywhere. No, but I would have loved to get a female perspective on the podcast, because we did meet several female solo travelers in Pakistan who I know would be very vehement in saying, it's safe for us. Everyone treats us respectfully. We feel completely free and liberated here, in the sense that we can everyone's kind to us and lovely and sweet to us.
Yeah.
Now, that would have been a great perspective to get, but you're just going to have to take my word for it.
Yeah.
There are very few female travelers in Pakistan because of the perception that is told to them and that people have. But the ones we did meet were treated with as much kindness as we were.
Yes. Yeah, I think there are certain things to bear in mind as well. We did change the way we dress.
Yeah.
I think that's important. That's a good little bit of info.
Totally. To the point where people often mistook us for local Pakistani. I know that seems really counterintuitive to people, because they're like, how could you mistake, you don't look Pakistani? We do look like Pakistanis from a certain region of Pakistan.
Yeah.
They're like Pathan Pakistanis they look like me.
We actually look so much like Pakistanis that in Oman, people think we are Pakistani because of what we're wearing.
Yes.
So yeah, if you're a woman, of course, you've got to dress conservatively, modestly.
Yeah.
And the men the same. And that will make your life a lot sort of easier and more enjoyable. I think that just goes without saying, doesn't it? Kind of.
Yeah, totally.
Common sense.
And it gets really serious on a podcast like Tripology when we start making points like this. And I know that people have really strong perspectives, so you have to tread a little bit carefully. Like if I say, hey, listen, as a female, or as a male who allies themselves with females and is forward thinking, you might think, listen, there's stuff that happens in Pakistan that I know about with regards to the relationship with the society with women that I don't agree with.
Yeah.
I'll say this. I'm all on board with disagreeing with a load of things, and maybe some of the things might put you off traveling to a place. There's things about a lot of cultures that I visit that I don't entirely agree with.
Yeah.
There's things about English culture that I don't agree with. Some things are worse than others. Some things are really bad. But as you travel to a place, I would suggest maybe have a little bit of an ornithological perspective. And that's difficult when it comes to ideology. But If you see yourself as someone who's watching a culture and embracing it, you don't need to have an open mind to things you disagree with, but you can just go and visit a place and compartmentalize the way things exist in your mind and enjoy Pakistan for what it is. See the beauty and the kindness in the way that people treat you. And sure, that might be polarized with other perspectives you have about the way things are. That's okay. There can be good and bad existing simultaneously. And it doesn't mean that the person that's in front of you is a bad person.
Yeah, I think that exposing yourself to things you disagree with and maybe challenging concepts or the way you thought previously, I think that's a healthy thing. I really do.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally, man. Well, with that, I think we round off Pakistan. People know that we loved it. People know it was amazing. And what I really want to hear about is the food culture.
Yeah, one of my favourite things of all time. And we're going to dive into a little item we like to call rice for breakfast.
Yeah, let's go.
Rice for breakfast. You can't have rice for breakfast. Alan, it's my favourite item. I am heavily biased, but it's rice for breakfast.
I think it's a lot of people's favourite items, and what a great place, little spot to cover Pakistani food.
Now, I've already said that I love travelling with you because I love eating with you, because we've got very similar tastes and we share everything. And all of these dishes we've shared. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go through my top 5 must-try foods in Pakistan.
Okay, I'm ready for it.
You love a top 5?
Yeah, let's go. Top 5 Pakistani foods.
So not in any order, if that's all right.
And what am I doing? Am I just interjecting to tell you my thoughts, or are you just going through, listing them, giving us a little review?
Yeah. I'd like you to sort of interject and tell me what you think, and whether you think that having them in this list is of value. As with a lot of Pakistani food, I want to preface this by saying it's quite meat heavy.
It is meat heavy. Maybe I'll preface this by saying that historically I've been known as Tripology's animal-loving vegetarian guy. But sometimes if I go to a place where a culture is very specifically guided towards the consumption of mammals, sometimes I think whilst travelling it's important to make compromises.
Yeah. I think that if you are a traveller and you're really interested in food, a foodie, another buzzword there, then you kind of have to be open in order to experience all that Pakistan has to offer in terms of food and food culture. You've got to eat meat. You'd struggle in Pakistan as a vegetarian. You really would. And by got to eat meat, I'm not saying you have to eat meat if you're a vegetarian for whatever reason, but there's a lot of meat going on and some elusive vegetables. Yeah. So the vegetable dishes that we tried were fantastic.
I found a carrot once. But apart from that,
it was next to a piece of meat.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was hiding underneath some mutton. Let's go, man.
So, number one, the chapli kebab.
Yeah,
I loved this. It is essentially a beef patty. It looks like a burger, heavily spiced, minced meat, and we ate it with a little roti, didn't we? Just a little bread.
Yeah, you said this was one of your favourite meals at the time. You loved it. Really fragrant, beautiful sort of
coriander seed, heavy black pepper, some chili in there as well. It is exceptional. And the way that they cook it, they deep fry it in oil. Yeah. So it forms this beautiful outer crust, nice and crispy and crunchy. But on the inside, it's like beef tartare.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Melt in the mouth.
Textural difference between the outer crust and the inside. Yeah. It's almost like the crust and the mantle of earth.
And what's amazing is that you take the bread, pick it off with your hands or whatever, and then you just use the bread as your cutlery and then rip off a little bit of the said kebab and eat it that way. A little bit of side salad.
Really cool.
Yeah, it's really, really good eating experience. I think if I was to do like a 5-course meal of my dreams,
the chapli kebab's on there.
The chapli kebab that we had in Chitral might make it.
Wow.
Seriously.
That was your favourite one, the Chitrali one?
It's very, very good.
Nice. Like that, man.
Next dish, the nahari. Which is
controversial.
It is controversial
because it made you sick.
It might be what made me sick for 24 hours. Quick turnaround time.
Very rich.
It was incredibly rich, covered in desi ghee, and beautifully flavourful. I mean, it is essentially like it's sort of a gravy, right? With some. We had brain in ours actually. Do you remember?
Yeah, I do remember.
Bit of brain, but a staple. It's typically as a breakfast food.
The consumption of the brain is what's helping me remember the fact that I consumed brain in that nahari.
But yeah, no Pakistani food list would be complete without the nahari.
Yeah.
It is one of the most
It's really
famous.
very beautiful dish as well.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. It's kind of chunks of meat. There was a bit of shin in there as well, in a very thick gravy, and then just ladles and ladles of desi ghee. So super rich, super buttery, good for dipping bread. It's very decadent. Yeah. I probably wouldn't eat more than one or two if you're here for a while.
One a week, I'd say, as your max with the nahari.
It's the Pakistani equivalent of a ramen in Japan.
Exactly.
And then something we had on multiple occasions, the karai.
Yeah, I think if I was to guess your favourite Pakistani food, I'd have plumped for the karahi. It seemed to be the one that you wanted to order the most.
Yeah, I think because it's really fun to eat with other people, isn't it? It's served in the big sort of cooking wok type pan that it's cooked in, which I think is great. Just plonked in the middle of the table, bit of bread around the outside, and you'll kind of dip in. It's pretty spicy. I mean, I wouldn't say that there's much chili heat, but it is typically a tomato and onion based gravy, quite thick sometimes. And then we've had chunks of chicken in there. We had a mutton one as well in Peshawar, which was really, really tasty. It's just fun to eat. It's just really, really good food, isn't it? It's simply done, and it's really good.
It's also the dish that we shared with Double A on the flower truck journey.
And as we know, context is everything.
Yeah.
So the next dish is the Kabuli pilau, originating from Kabul in Afghanistan, I would imagine.
Okay, I'm not sure I remember having a Kabuli pilau with you. When was this?
We had it in Peshawar.
Okay.
Do you not remember? It was sort of currants, carrots in the rice.
I was so scared for my life in Peshawar that I don't remember nothing.
We didn't even have one armed guard with one AK-47 in that city.
Yeah.
But it's like a rice dish, as the pulao would suggest. And then we had a big hunk of beef on top of it. Do you remember? It was just...
yeah, I do actually. In that restaurant that we went to every night because it was the only place we were allowed to go to.
It was really, really tasty. And I love the inclusion of like sweet dried fruit in rice dishes.
Yeah.
It's quite Middle Eastern.
That's a very Peshawar thing.
Yeah, I would highly recommend that. It's very, very popular all around Pakistan. Delicious. And then I've gone for the number 5 is the halva puri. Do you remember that breakfast we had on the morning after the first day?
I do remember that. Yeah, very nice.
I mean, halva being quite sweet, made from semolina.
Yep.
And brain featured as well, didn't it?
We were always ordering brain.
That was another nehari, though, that we added on. We tacked that on for a slap-up breakfast, as I like to say.
The second I saw that B consonant on a menu, I knew that you were ordering brain. He loves a prion.
Yeah. But puri meaning bread, usually fried bread in a disc shape, and sometimes served with like chana, some sort of chickpea curry.
Nice.
It's just a traditional Pakistani breakfast. Delicious, really, isn't it?
I love that. I think that's a great cross-section of Pakistani food, man. I think if someone was to go to Pakistan and use that list, like, I need to have these 5, they'd end up having a good culinary experience.
What, can I tell you some honourable mentions?
Yeah.
The mango shake.
Oh, yeah. We'd have one a day.
We'd have one a day. Highly recommend those. Fresh fruit everywhere. And then I would like to tell you the best meal that I had in terms of an experience of eating with you.
Okay, your favourite one. With me specifically?
With you. When do you think that was? Which meal? One meal?
Very favourite. Was it?
It might be the same as yours. Which would be interesting.
No, I don't have a good intuition. Maybe that one we had on a rooftop overlooking a mosque.
Oh, it was close. It was high up. It was pretty high up. It might have been the highest we went.
Oh, when we went on the hike.
Yeah.
That was a very simple meal, but lovingly prepared.
Again, talking about the context, I mean, we've been hiking all day. It was 10:30 at night, if you remember. But me and you cooped up in a little stone shack with Kareem.
Yeah.
And we had this, it was just basically rice and vegetables.
And you just recently learned that I hadn't died falling off the ravine fetching water. So that probably made you grateful.
Yeah. We sat there, we had 2 plates each, 2 enormous plates each of this rice. And I can't remember a time in recent years when I've been happier.
So hungry.
Yeah.
So sated as well. Second helpings.
Yeah. And it was a second helping the same size as the first.
Yeah.
But there was a little dying fire, wasn't there? It was just a wonderful moment that I'll remember. The food itself, if I was to try and discern quality, it was probably the most bland food we had in Pakistan.
Yeah.
But eating it the way we did was perfect.
Amazing, man. That's such a great roundup. I really enjoyed the format. 5 top foods, your favourite eating experience. Well, I mean, for the first time ever, we can tell the audience to head over to tripologypodcast.com.
My goodness.
And in the blog section, you can find a little write-up about Pakistani food on the Rice for Breakfast food blog.
It is going to be my new sort of exercising my creative muscles.
Yeah, so look,
the only muscles I've got.
If you enjoy Rice for Breakfast and you want to hear it in written form, reading, some people call it, you can head over to that blog, check it out, check out the website.
Hear it in written form.
Written form, Rice for Breakfast.
That was amazing. I love it. I think I'm going to really enjoy that.
Yeah, cool. There's also a contact form on that website. You can message us there.
Get in touch with us.
Hostel
We'd love to
Common
hear from
Room,
you.
it's called. You can ask questions to the show.
Yeah.
You can follow us on Instagram @tripologypodcast. And we'll see you next week. Next week, we're going to tell you about our experience all in Amman.
I know.
It's going to be a pretty hectic adventure, and you're here for it. You know, the Pakistanis, they lift their legs nice and high. The Indians, they lift their legs nice and high too. What is it that the Amanis do? We'll find out on the next week of Tripology.
We'll see you there.
Bye.